Hello and welcome to the Collapse Experiment. It has been a busy last couple of days. And this is coming from somebody who doesn't regularly watch the news anymore. After the last election, after election day, I cut off like all links and everything to the news. I took X or Twitter off of my phone. I only view it and go on there if I'm on my computer, and sometimes I don't even do it then. YouTube, I think I've clicked on enough other things where news stories really aren't coming up all that often, except for this one that I'm going to talk about right now. So, if you like this video, please share it, subscribe. Moving on. Ross Ulbricht. If you're familiar with the name, it's a story that royally pisses me off. So Ross, there's a movie about Ross, and I don't off the top of my head remember what the name of it is. There's a couple documentaries, but they made an actual movie. I believe it had the sheriff from Stranger Things was a corrupt cop in that. So it had some bigger names. And of course, it told the story from the perspective of the prosecutors who sent Ross to prison, what was supposed to be the rest of his life and after. So I don't know. They gave him 2 consecutive life sentences plus 40 years. So not only was he going to be there till he died, he was going to be there still until he died again. And then after he died the second time, another 40 years. Our legal system is just freaking stupid when it comes to this stuff. So this guy was never supposed to get out of prison. And what he did was, in college, he started creating a website. And he was also really big on Bitcoin. Bitcoin had just started up. And he wanted to do something like Craigslist or perhaps eBay, but have it invisible to the public and to the government, where basically you could sell and trade stuff that the government frowned upon. He created the website, and he created the way of where people would trade Bitcoin for products on there. He also had a library on this site, the dark website. So it wasn't on the World Wide Web. It was one of these hidden sites where you had to have a special code in order to access it, and only certain people would hand out the code to other people that were verified. But on this site, they had a library, and part of the library was how to do heroin without dying. I believe there was also, what was it? The Anarchist Cookbook was available for free. There was a whole library of stuff you could download for free, which of course, copyright people absolutely hated that. But the thing, in his mind, it was people are going to do this stuff anyways. People are going to do heroin and smoke weed and all the other ones that are out there. They're going to, regardless of whether it's illegal or not. And in his mind, why not make it to where you are purchasing it from somebody who's reputable, because you could leave reviews on the Silk Road website. Hey, this guy gave me a bunch of bunk weed, or I think there was something, I think this product was laced with something else, and dude, that's not cool. So sellers would actually be removed from the site if it turned out they were either selling fake stuff or bad stuff or stuff that was laced with things that shouldn't be there. Weird quality control in the drug world. Who would have thought? So he creates this website, and he also he figured out a way of banking where the one person would put the Bitcoin, and the Silk Road site would hold the Bitcoin, and then there'd be, okay, I got my product, and then once that person got their product and they're satisfied with it, it was what they were supposed to be buying, that Bitcoin would be transferred to the seller. Cool. Nobody's getting screwed out of any money here either. It's almost like this guy should be running the government or something. Weird. So they bust this guy, and part of the story is that while he was running the Silk Road, he was getting screwed over by a couple of people that were on there. And so he decided to save his own ass by hiring a hitman on the Silk Road to take out said person that could send him to prison. However, I believe 100% that story is BS, because they wanted to make an example out of this guy, and they wanted to put him in prison for as long as possible. And the fact that in their variation of the story, that a cop offered services to delete somebody associated with Ross in order to save Ross, and Ross apparently, allegedly, gave this person money to do the thing, and they didn't prosecute him for this. You're sharing the story. You say you have evidence, but nah, we're going to have like these really bad charges for this stuff. We're going to drop that whole murder thing, and then and then we're going to make it so that the punishment for the other things that are not as bad as murder are so astronomical that he'll just never get out of prison anyways. Well, now he's free. And in my opinion, that's a very good thing. However, I will say that there have been other people like him in the past, and Ross is actually very lucky. So, 2 examples. One, Aaron Swartz. Now, you may remember this guy, you may not. So, to sum up his story, he's one of the co-creators of Reddit. He did a whole lot of really cool things with the internet. He was basically I believe he dropped out of high school and then was able to like test out of college. Like, pretty bright dude. I believe the documentary about him is called The Internet's Boy. Might want to check that out. Cool story. But what he got busted for was going to college and downloading some papers. And Obama tried to ruin his life over this. So to narrow that down a little bit more, he enrolls in this college. By enrolling, he has access to the library mainframe, where they hold a bunch of government-funded studies on all kinds of stuff that were done by the college, that were funded by my tax dollars and your tax dollars and everybody's tax dollars. However, what ends up happening is the college gets this money, they do their study, and then either the college or companies will say that they bought or own the rights to these studies, and that the information in these studies is not available to the public unless you pay to be a student. So what Aaron did was he hooked up his computer and he just started downloading a bunch of these studies, these papers, and putting it on a hard drive. And while he was doing this, he was also uploading them onto the internet for everybody to be able to access, because we paid for it. It's ours. We paid for that. I don't understand the whole we get to own this stuff and you can't have it, when the college didn't pay for it. We did. That was Aaron's thinking too. So he offered it available for free online. And the government did not like that at all. So what they ended up doing, They seized all of his assets, saying that it was ill-gotten gains. All of his money was from the sale of Reddit. How the government was allowed to do this and how he wasn't able to get his money back, that's some bullshit. And Trump, I think some heads need to roll over shit like this. Just saying, I'm not promoting violence. There's ways of rolling someone's head without... Just saying. But they took all of his money basically so that he could not legally fight the government in court, is what happened. So they seized all of his money. He knew he was going to prison for the rest of his life. And Aaron ended up self-deleting himself. The other story that I'm going to get to that shows that Ross is actually pretty freaking lucky for what these dictatorship assholes did to him is Duncan Lemp. And this is the guy, he was killed in his home in 2020. And what he was doing, and I know this from all the research that I did on the story and wrote a book on called The Assassination of Duncan Lemp, available on Amazon, is that he was doing work for local militias. Keep in mind, militias are legal. They are legal entities. Any group of dudes can get together and form a militia. It's in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights. So he's doing work with local militias to create websites because they want to have a presence on the internet just like everybody else. So he's doing these websites, he's putting everything together, and part of the websites was that he was creating backdoors. He was creating his own Silk Road for the militias. And part of this project was so that militias could trade amongst themselves out of the eyes of the government, because good Lord, the ATF shows up for anything. And they would be able to trade with each other using Bitcoin. So he took the idea of the Silk Road and he was applying it to these websites for these militia groups that he knew personally so that they could communicate and trade amongst each other without anybody knowing about it, which is pretty much how a free market should work anyways. Why the internet can't just be a giant garage sale, I don't know. But no, the government, they had an issue with that. How do I know that? Because of the timing of when he wrote he put his last post on Instagram, and some dude contacted him saying, hey, what are you working on these days? And then I think Duncan was trying to be smart and described what he was doing using technical terms that somebody else figured out. Because that was when the investigation opened on him and the paperwork got sent to the local sheriff's department. The sheriff's department watched a couple videos of his and said, hey, we think that rifle is illegal. So they go to a judge, and the judge is like, yeah, I can give you a warrant. And they're like, can you give us a no-knock warrant? And they're like, yeah, he said he doesn't like cops and stuff. Because you fucking raided his house when he was in high school in the middle of the night. Yeah, that's going to leave a good taste in your mouth. Who would like cops after that? So yeah, they get this no-knock warrant. They go to his house in the middle of the night after they had somebody else in the house earlier that was an informant and said, yeah, he's got this thing on the door in his room and blah, 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 blah. I tried to give him the hand grenade. He wouldn't take it. What is it with cops and hand grenades, by the way? I just curious. Hand grenades are not as cool as people think they are. So yeah, they tried to get him with that. Of course, the rifle that they said was illegal due to the length of the barrel, totally illegal. Not an automatic weapon. Never shot in an automatic capacity on any of the Instagram videos he posted ever. The only thing the cops did was they sent a photo of him from a video to the company that manufactured it, and the company was like, yeah, that looks like one of ours. Okay, semi-auto. Like, even they didn't indicate, like, yeah, that's fully automatic and illegal in your country. So they throw a couple flashbangs through the windows. Another cop points into the house. Duncan gets out of bed and they shoot him without identifying themselves in front of his pregnant girlfriend who was in bed next to him. And then the aftermath of that one was, how do I know that they were actually there to investigate the whole militia Silk Road thing? Well, they took all the computers in the house. They took his girlfriend's computer out of the car. They ripped apart all the cars. They took the 3D printer. Any phones, any external hard drives. It wasn't about the rifle at all. So Ross was lucky. They didn't kill his ass. They sent him to prison for the rest of his life, hoping to prevent a Duncan lump. And then when Duncan had the idea to do it anyways, they killed him. So, Ross is free. I'm glad. And I'm glad it didn't turn out like all the other stories besides Aaron Schwartz and Duncan Lump. All the other people that horrible stuff happened to because they were curious or wanted to make the world a slightly better place. But that's the government's job.